Okay, so here we are, day 2 of Tempest. I'm going to get these all finished up and filed away this afternoon, evening, whatever you call it. And there's only so much I can say about Tempest without making these videos really long, because there's so much going on in Tempest, and most of it was awesome. Now look, there's a Licit. I've talked about Licits before. Tempest saw Thralls and Saprolings coming back. You had a bunch of Thrall creatures. You had a couple of creatures that made Saproling tokens. So, you know, those are some of my favorite things from Fallen Empires. It was nice to see them coming back. You had the Encore damage redirection mechanic. That was crazy stuff. You had pain and depletion lands all over the place. What was really nice to see was pain lands in enemy colors, black, white, red, blue, green, blue, black, green, etc., etc. I mean, that was really nice, because we hadn't seen enemy colored lands since Revised, really, with the original dual lands, which were Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, Revised. Just a whole bunch of stuff that I can talk on if I want to. Like I said, there's a lot going on in Tempest, and I'm not going to be able to cover it all in these videos, especially since the point of these videos is that I'm sorting, not that I'm going to give in-depth commentary on everything, but I try to give some nice comments. Oracle and Vec is one of those cards that gets overlooked a lot. It's a fun little card. It's a colorless and a white for a 1/1. You tap it, and target opponent has to tell you what he's attacking with on next turn. On his next turn, and he can only choose creatures that he currently has in play. And any of those creatures that he said he was going to attack with that he doesn't are destroyed at the end of his turn. And you can only use this ability during your own turn. But the idea being is, it does a lot of interesting things. Number one, it shuts down haste. It's like, oh, I mean, it sits there and says, what is that? Is that a ball of lightning? Yeah, you're not swinging with it. You didn't declare it an attacker last turn. You didn't say you were going to attack with it, but I didn't have it on the board. Whose fault is that? It's cute. It's fun. I used to use it with peace talks just to irk people. It's like, what are you attacking with next turn? What are you attacking with next turn? Hey, what are you attacking me with next turn? And then when they got sick of it and they realized I've got next to, and they look at me with next to nothing on the table, they're like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to swing with everything next turn. Cool. Peace talks. Peace Talks was a card from, I want to say, Visions, where it basically says for the remainder of the current, it's a sorcery, for the remainder of the current turn and all of the next, players cannot attack or use targeted spells and effects. So yeah, it's fun stuff. Wall of Blossoms. One of the things that they try to do in Stronghold is make good walls, and for the most part they actually succeeded. Wall of Blossoms was recently reprinted in white as Wall of Omens. Nice little card. Cracklin, X green comes into play with X +1/+1 counters on it and has regeneration. If I recall the articles correctly, Cracklin's playtest name was Creature Ball. It was interesting. It's a concept that they've revisited a time or two. It's nice. Rolling Thunder, X red sorcery, deals X damage divided as you choose amongst any number of creatures or players. Oh, target creatures or players, but yeah. Rolling Thunder is nice because I knew a lot of people that would screw up math when dividing the damage on their fireball. Because it's like, yeah, I'm doing all this damage with the fireball, I'll kill that and that and that, and it's like, damage gets divided evenly. And what can I say? It happens. Oh well. Intruder Alarm from Stronghold. Whenever creatures don't untap during their controller's untap, whenever a creature comes into play, untap all creatures. I'm not actually filing that away. I'm going to put that aside because I got a use for that. A little bit on the surprise side, I have a playset of Pandemoniums, and I've got some Time Spiral ones hanging around and such. So I've got a bunch of Pandemoniums, and it's a fun card. It's been part of combos before. It's cute. It's amusing. I like it. Always wanted to. Almost wanted to put Pandemonium into a graveyard recursion deck. Yeah, and I already had a name picked out for that deck too. I wanted to call it Deadbolt, because it turns all your creatures into lightning bolts and stuff. Oh wow, there's 5 of them right here. I got 5 Lotus Petals sitting here. I know I've got 4 in another deck. I've got 4 in my Lantless deck. Lotus Petal is one of those cards that end up being more powerful than people expected it to be. I mean, people liked it anyway, but it's just kind of funny because it was designed to be a seriously dumbed down version of Black Lotus, and it still ended up being insanely good. The flavor text on it isn't meant as a reference to how much Black Lotus would go for on the secondary market and such. Hard to imagine, mused Hannah, stroking the petal. Such a lovely flower, inspiring such greed. But yeah, right there you got a 0 casting cost artifact that you can tap and sack for 1 mana of any color. Kid science fun stuff. Scroll Rack. It's a card I used to use a fair amount. I think it's gotten better over the years rather than worse, which is amazing. Basically, you swap. It's a 2 colorless artifact, 1 colorless, and tap it, and you swap. You take a bunch of cards out of your hand, any number, draw that many cards, and then put the cards you removed from your hand on top of your deck. So you can swap part of or all of your hand with cards from the top of your deck. It's interesting. I like it. It's a funky effect. It gets better if you have spells that let you shuffle or draw or whatever. I mean, it goes great with, say, for example, Scry. Yeah, I'm going to put a bunch of cards on top of the deck, then I'm going to cast this spell that makes me Scry. I'm going to put those useless cards that I threw on top on the bottom, that I'm going to draw some cards. I've got a bigger hand now, blah, 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 or say at least same size, you know? It's like, yeah. It's cute, it's fun, I like it. Another thing they had going on, they gave us a hint at it in Tempest with the Spike Drone. He was the only Spike printed in Tempest. Green for a 0/0 creature that comes into play with a 1/1 counter on it. And you can pay 2 colors to remove a +1/+1 counter from him and put it on target creature. And then in Stronghold, they printed like 4 more spikes. We have the Spike Colony, which is just like the drone, but it costs 4 and a green, comes in with 4 counters. The Feeder, which is a colorless and 2 green, comes in with 2. And you can remove the ++ counters from it to gain life. The Soldier for 2 colors and double green, which comes into play with 3, and you can remove counters to give it +2/+2 till end of turn. Mind you, all of these have the whole redirection ability. Redirection, the remove the +1/+1 counter to put on another creature ability. Yeah. The Worker for 2 colors and a green, which comes into play with 2 counters, otherwise the same as the drone. And then in Exodus, we got the Spike Rogue, colorless and 2 green, comes in with 2 counters, and you can pay 2 colors and remove a +1/+1 counter from any creature you control to put onto the Spike Rogue. So that's kind of funny because that basically sits there and says, yeah, you can put a counter on something else, and then move it onto the rogue, and then move it onto something else. So if you've got non-spike creatures in your deck, which most of us did, he does wacky fun stuff. Oh, then we have the Spike Weaver. 2 colors, double green, comes in with 3 counters. You can remove +1/+1 counters for a fog. That's kind of spiffy. Then we have our good friend, the Spike Cannibal. He does not have the Spike ability to remove counters and put them onto the creatures. He comes into play, he's a colorless and double black for a 0/0, comes into play with a +1/+1 counter. When he comes into play, move all +1/+1 counters from all creatures onto him. That's nasty. That is nasty. Oh, and we have the Carnifage. He ended up being popular in Suicide Black decks. Single black mana for 2/2. During your upkeep, pay a life or tap him. Suicide Black was a pretty classic strategy. Basically, it involved it was basically a black aggro concept. It was basically cheap creatures, usually with disproportionately high power and/or toughness for their casting cost. You played it aggressively. A lot of them had nasty drawbacks. For example, you had, like, right there we had the Carnifage. You have to pay life every turn for them. Urge Raiders, another lovely example, which was, I believe, was a colorless and a black for a 2/3 creature. But if you didn't attack with him, he'd deal 2 damage to you. I don't remember if he tapped himself in the process or not. I can't remember. But yeah, there was all sorts of. Frequently, you'd use Bad Moon as a augmenter. It's a colorless and a black for an enchantment that gives all black creatures +1/+1. Cute, fun, happy stuff like that. Suicide Black would also run some disruption, usually a little bit of, usually a handful of creature removal and discard. Anyway, like I said, it's Tempest block, well, Wrath Cycle, whatever you want to call it. It was loads of fun. There's so much going on in the block, so much. And what was amazing about it is that, for the most part, it still felt more or less like a cohesive block the whole way through. And it was some awesome stuff. There was some really great stuff. Alrighty. I wish I could sit here and talk on this longer, but this video is probably getting pretty long at this point. I haven't been paying attention to how long I've been running. So Tempest, great block, a lot of good stuff going on. It was really fun. I have no idea what Tempest boosters are going for these days. I remember at the booster draft, it's like on Friday night, some people say, well, sometimes, when things start getting old, people are like, well, what do we want to draft tonight? And, one of the first things I'll bust out with is Tempest! Because I think there is a little bit of Tempest still hanging around at my FLGS. Yeah, ain't that wacky stuff. But, yeah. Alright, well, be good, guys. Have a good night, etc., etc. Be good, be safe. You know the drill.